All right, I just want to move to the contracting out of the 250 DHS jobs to Serco. Firstly, what's the cost and the value of Serco's contract?
I'll just get some officers to the table
No
and have
worries.
that detail, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Barry Jackson again. The Serco contract is for a 2-year period with an approximate value of $53 million over the 2-year period.
2-year period, 53 million. Okay. What was the tendering process? Limited tender or competitive tender?
It was Chris Horsley, General Manager, Strategy Service Delivery. It was a competitive tender.
Any more information?
We used the ATO panel of suppliers, and there were 2 suppliers who were on the part of the procurement process.
Okay. Two suppliers?
2 suppliers, yeah.
Can you list those?
Stella and Serco.
When will the contracting of DHS jobs to Serco commence?
These are additional jobs, Senator, so we're not taking away 250 DHS jobs. This is 250 additional capacity on top of our existing capacity.
Well,
so
it comes after the 1,200 that DHS has lost, but...
So
okay.
I just want to clarify that it's 250 additional capacity, and so that will commence next week.
Next week, that the Serco jobs will start?
They will start to deliver services next week.
Okay. And what could... Yes?
I believe also that just for clarification, when you mentioned 1,200 loss, that would be to do with terminating measures as part of the budget process. I think the actual number is in the order of 800 and something or other. But that's just to clarify that point for you.
What conditions will the Serco employees be paid under?
Senator, the Serco employees are in the most part members, I believe, of the Australian Union of Workers. They will have an enterprise agreement, or do have an enterprise agreement that has been registered with the Fair Work Commission as part of the Australian Union of Workers arrangements.
But they'll be employed by Serco.
Correct.
That will be who their employment arrangements are with.
So you're saying they've got an EBA with the AWU, is that?
AUW, I believe it is.
National Union of Workers.
Oh, NUW.
NUW, yes.
Apologise. But as the Secretary said, they will be employees of Serco. They will not be department employees.
Right. So that there is an EBA in place?
That is my understanding, yes.
What impact will these jobs have on the, as we've heard this evening, 55 million missed calls to Centrelink?
Well, the purpose of the additional capacity is to help to address wait times, and so what we'll be monitoring very closely, of course, is what impact it's having on call wait times, and that's the whole point of it, is to help attack call wait times, and we will be reviewing the efficiency and effectiveness of Serco in answering calls so that we can assess that impact. As the Minister announced, it is a pilot project in order to see whether we can utilise that kind of capacity to assist with call wait times.
Okay, so that's the whole aim, to assist with the call wait times. So what exactly will the work be that these people will be undertaking?
They'll be undertaking telephony services work, dealing with some of the less complex inquiries that we get through our telephony lines, primarily in the areas of Centrelink online support services and MyGov support services, reporting of employment income, and basics card general inquiries will be the 3.
So does that mean if you call the Centrelink number you could be talking to someone from Serco.
That's right, depending on what your call is about.
Could I just check a follow-up question in there? Will you be assessing the, for want of a better word, productivity of a call answered by Serco versus a call answered internally?
There'll be a range of metrics that we work through.
But you will be assessing
but that among other
comparison.
things, also recipient experience, time to resolve, average handling times. So there will be a range of metrics that will go into that.
Which are the metrics that we apply to assessing our own performance as well.
Yeah.
Aren't they dealing with, certainly from the media that the Minister put out, they're dealing with the more simpler
That's correct.
calls. So
And so we will
you
only...
need to be careful with that.
You need to compare like
we would
with
only
like.
compare
Absolutely.
like with like.
Absolutely.
I should say that we don't know yet how the trial will go, but we do hope, in our engagement with Serco and our discussions with the ATO, who've used outsourced service providers for some time, give us some reason to believe that we will also be able to garner ideas from Serco about how we can improve our own productivity as well. So it's not simply a process of expecting a different sort of productivity from Serco than from ourselves. We may well be able to garner ideas about how they manage their call strategies in a way that helps us with our own productivity. So we are hoping to make it a fruitful dialogue both ways.
Okay, so look, this is a 2-year contract worth $53 million to Serco, employing 250 jobs employed by Serco. Realistically, what impact is this going to have on the 55 million missed calls to Centrelink currently? You must have done some kind of modelling to work out, A, how many jobs to just outsource, you know, the size of the contract and the like. So you must have done something to work out what kind of impact you're wanting to gain out of this whole thing, this process.
Again, just sort of going back to some of the earlier evidence we've given regarding the 55 million and the concerns that we have that is not an accurate indication of the unique people who are coming through our system. So I think it's not quite appropriate to directly link the 250 Serco staff to that. Equally, if we...
Well, Mr Jackson, what would you like me to link it to?
In an aim to reduce call wait times.
Of which at the moment there are 55 million missed calls.
So our KPI is about average speed to answer. So the KPI that we are seeking to address is about call wait times, and the more people you have answering the calls and the more efficiently people can answer the calls and the greater productivity we can get out of call answering, the more calls we'll be able to deal with and the shorter the wait times will be. It's not the only strategy that we have deployed. We are also reforming. We've invested a lot of effort and resources into improving the telephony system. We are continuing to improve the routing of calls so that people's calls can be dealt with by operators who are already skilled to answer that call, and that you don't end up with people being transferred between calls.
Yeah, I understand all of that, but to come up with the 250 outsourced jobs to create this Serco call centre to do this work of Centrelinks, you must have some idea what kind of impact that this is going to have.
Will it reduce
so
it by 10
what
million?
is that?
Well,
20 million?
because I've tried to set out for you that there are a range of measures being deployed, if we weren't doing anything else to reduce call wait times, then yes, you'd be able to just say whatever's changed in the call wait time we can attribute to Serco. But what we will be able to assess is the productivity of the Serco employees in answering the calls. I wouldn't say that we are going to attribute everything that occurs across the network in the next 2 years only to the Serco intervention. It's a pilot, and we will assess the productivity and efficiency and effectiveness of those workers as one of a range of strategies that we're deploying to address call wait times and busy signals.
How did you
all right.
determine, can I just check, how did you determine, have another go, how did you determine that that was the right number?
Well, Senator, you know, I don't think there's a right number. You have to do a trial that's got enough.
That was the appropriate
You have to do a
number.
trial that is both large enough to be able to measure it, but not so large that you're investing a significant amount of resources in something that's as yet untried. So it's, you know, it's a fairly small number compared to the many thousands of Centrelink employees who are answering the phone. So it just had to be large enough so that we could get a reasonable feel for the impact that this kind of model might have.
All right, did you do any modelling before deciding on this trial?
Senator, we did work closely with the ATO and their advisors that they've had for some time. They have had external providers providing call centre activity for them for the last 10 years or so. So we engaged with KPMG, who have been the long-term advisors, and they came back to us and indicated that 250 gives sufficient critical mass to align with the comments that the Secretary made to enable that you are going to get a pilot that will deliver you with a clear indication of the benefits that can come from this work.
Okay.
And so which call lines will they be targeted at?
I mentioned earlier on that there were the 3 lines around Centrelink, online support services and MyGov support, basic card general inquiries and reporting of employment income.
Okay, so the department itself did not do any modelling
So what do you mean by modelling?
to work out how, you know, how to set up this call centre and determine the size and the conditions and the whole.
So we don't have to determine the conditions for the
Part of
centre
it.
because these people are employed by Serco under conditions that are already part of their enterprise agreement.
Ms Leon, I'm asking whether you did any modelling
So modelling's quite
before
a
you
specific
came.
term.
Well, it is quite a
Senator.
specific term, and when you're dealing with a 55 million missed call blowout, you would think that you would do some due diligence to work out how to bring it down before, you know, providing a $53 million contract to Serco
Well, part of what...
to resolve some of this issue.
So this is a pilot, Senator. So the point of it is to assess the productivity that we can get from an outsourced provider, drawing on the experience that the ATO's already had, which gives us some confidence that it's not unwarranted to expect that we'll be able to have some impact in terms of increased productivity. But the pilot will help us to do the kind of more detailed...
but you didn't do any
modelling.
work to work out what size of that impact you want to have.
Increased productivity because it's a lower hourly rate, or because each worker's doing more calls than a Centrelink worker would
Well,
do? What do you rate your productivity judgment on when you say
We have a range of metrics which we are still developing for the review, but they go both to average speed of answer, they go to time taken to handle the call, you know, to resolve the matter for the client, and to the effectiveness and satisfaction of the outcome. So they're the kinds of metrics that are likely to be deployed. Is there anything to add to that?
Are you aware of what Serco are going to pay these employees?
That's a matter between Serco and their employees, but as I did indicate, they do have an enterprise agreement that is registered with the Fair Work Commission.
Is it not $9 per hour less than DHS employees on average?
I would have to take that.
You don't know.
No, and that's a matter between Serco and their employees.
Well, surely if you're going to compare costs, you should really know how much these staff are being paid.
I don't think we said we were comparing the costs.
Well, you're
Senator. I think we
comparing
said
whether
we were
it's good value
comparing
compared to what you do in-house
in terms
of
of
the productivity.
the average speed of answer, the time taken to resolve the matter, you know, the effectiveness of the call answering service.
Okay, let's move into some detail. What information about DHS clients will the Serco employees have access to?
They will have information that is limited to purely the nature of the calls that they are taking. As our staff do now, they are skill tagged, our staff, and identified as to what access they can get into. And if they do not have the appropriate skill tagging, they cannot go into areas outside of the queues that I mentioned to you before. They will also be subject to exactly the same privacy training that our people are, and the same privacy standards. And we've been working, we did a privacy assessment on this prior to the work as part of the broader work we did with KPMG and others setting this up, and exactly the same standards that they will have. Equally, with exactly the same work, with work they've been doing with ATO for some 10 years, they have access to obviously some very significant information when working with the ATO, and the ATO have not expressed any concerns regarding the privacy and access to information that's been inappropriate.
But the ATO is a government agency. This is Serco.
No, Serco provides services to the ATO.
All right. What DHS IT systems will they have access to?
They'll be using our infrastructure.
So all of the usual IT infrastructure that Centrelink...
As it relates to the work that they are doing.
So what obligations will they have to protect the security and privacy of information that they have access to?
They'll be subject to exactly the same standards and expectations as our own staff.
But how will the department manage that compliance?
We are able to assess any inappropriate browsing, as we do with our own staff. If our own staff go looking at data that they're not entitled to do so, or for their own personal reasons, we monitor that on a regular basis. And
so how does that compliance happen? Is it random?
There are a number of systems that we have in place that can identify if a member does start to browse inappropriately.
They'll be using our systems, so they'll be subject to the same scrutiny as our staff.
Good.
So combined with the call centre, outsourcing, isn't this just another sign of the Coalition's plan to privatise the Department of Human Services and the work it does?
I can probably answer that, no.
Well, given the problems with the online compliance program, why isn't the department putting more resources into recruiting and training its ongoing staff, rather than, and in doing so, deepening and broadening their own skill set, rather than, outsourcing with $53 million to Serco to set up a call centre?
So we are currently recruited all the way up to our ASL cap, so we aren't allowing our own staff numbers to degrade. The department is fully staffed.
You could recruit more of your own staff.
Well, we are recruited all the way up to the ASL cap at the moment. We aren't allowing gaps to develop or there's no failure of recruitment on our part, and we'll be continuing to recruit actively throughout the year. And we do have a very active training program for our own staff. It's something that the department has long been committed to, and I'm personally very committed to there being very active investment in the capacity building of our own staff. I should say, the department's budget is over $4 billion a year, so a contract that is about $20 million a year to Serco is a very small expenditure compared to the expenditure we have on our own staff and systems.
Well, that might be because they're being paid $9 less than your own staff.
It's because they are a very small component of the overall staff of the department. The staff of the department, there are about 30,000 staff of the department, so 250 staff in Serco is a very small number compared to the number of APS staff that are deployed to do the work of the department.
Well, I understand there are about 1,100 people that are being engaged through a labour hire arrangement to undertake compliance work in DHS. Is that correct?
That's correct.
1,100 people.
Well, I can get the exact number for you. It's not a part of the department, not the officers who are at the table.
So this is on top of the 250 Serco call centre.
But it's to do different work.
Yeah, to do different work. Let's wait for those officials to come. While that's happening, if I was to call Centrelink and get through, would the...
Which 3 million people every year do.
3 million people do, as opposed to the 50...
3 million out of 5.8 million don't even receive one busy signal.
Can I just say, under this new arrangement of this Serco call centre being able to take Centrelink calls, will the Serco employee identify themselves as a Serco employee? Because they're clearly not a Centrelink DHS employee.
No, Senator, they won't, because they're doing the work of Centrelink. So just as when you ring up now, the person doesn't say, "Hi, I'm Mandy and I'm employed by Centrelink," they're doing the work of Centrelink. And
but you know that they are.
And when you ring the tax office, you get the exact same service, whether it's a whether it's a Serco employee or an ATO employee. So it'll be just the same.
All right, let's talk about these 1,100 people that have been engaged through a labour hire arrangement to undertake compliance work in the department.
It's, I don't think it's 1,100, I think it's 1,000.
1,000,
that have
right.
been, we have announced, we've consulted to the effect that we are going to engage the 1,000, but we haven't yet engaged them.
Right. So why is this additional work being staffed through a labour hire arrangement?
Well, Senator, that's the decision the government's made.
So
Would you have,
was this a decision by the minister or the department?
Well, this is a government decision, Senator.
So the minister.
No, it was a government decision.
Who
is it
made
the government or is the minister the government?
who's made the decision?
Was it a ministerial
Does it
decision?
come
it was
through
the government.
cabinet?
I'll take on notice and provide any more information. Obviously, I'm only representing the minister here, so I can't speak
Thanks,
to it.
Minister. Okay. All right. So, why is this additional work being undertaken by a labour hire arrangement?
Well, you know, as Mr McNamara said, it was the government's decision that we should do it this way, but the kind of reasons why you use labour hire are that it gives you access to a more flexible workforce. So, for
The hire
example,
and fire arrangement.
For example, if you've got work that, so the kinds of reasons that government agencies generally use labour hire, sometimes it's for specialist skills, sometimes it's for surge capacity, sometimes it's because you've got a short-term piece of work that you want to get done and you're not certain that it's going to be ongoing, so you don't want to put a whole lot of people on who you aren't necessarily going to need. So we'll be using labour hire in this context for the same sorts of reasons as government departments use labour hire across the board.
Do you actually know how many of your own casual staff would like more hours?
So we're actually in a process of converting many of our casual staff to non-casual arrangements, so we are responding to their desire for more certain hours, Senator.
What will the 1,000, will they be located off-site or in an existing DHS workplace?
Craig Storen, General Manager, Customer Compliance Division. The plan, Senator, is to locate the 1,000 within existing DHS worksites, within existing Customer Compliance Division worksites across the country.
Okay. And can you tell me any more information about the process that's gone on in engaging this labour hire? Yeah.
Yes, Senator. So the process to date has been consultation with our own staff. Mm-hmm. So we've asked our staff, in the context of a government decision, to raise any issues that they feel like to raise with us in terms of the implementation. We're in the midst of that process at the moment. At the conclusion of that process, we'll move into a procurement phase.
Okay. I just have a few more questions before handing over to either of my colleagues here on the drug testing trials.